Hello and welcome to Forging the Tip of the Spear. I'm your host, Mike. I've been having this podcast generally on Spotify only and just started recently recording video. I'm now including this on YouTube as well in order to kind of grow the audience a little bit and try to get the message out to really help as many people as possible. The purpose of this podcast, or why I call it Forging the Tip of the Spear, is because my goal is, in my journey to forge myself into the best person that I can be, I can kind of help anybody else along the way that's struggling or that wants to improve themselves. Because I am far from perfect and I'm far from the person that I want to be. So I thought that if I at least track my own journey, I can at least help some other people not necessarily make the same mistakes that I make, or give them some tips or tricks or things that I do either on a daily basis or sometimes multiple times a day in order to help myself with issues that I'm dealing with or with everyday life. Because I think one thing that we can all be pretty clear about is right now life's a little crazy. The world is kind of going out of control. We've been battling a pandemic for over 2 years now. There's a lot of social anxiety. There's a lot of social upheaval. And I think one of the things that we can do in order to help not only ourselves, but our families, our communities, and the world is to become the best versions of ourselves, to become physically strong, mentally strong, and to really become that best version of ourselves so that when people need help, when people need somebody to turn to, you can be that person. And that's my goal, not only for myself, but also in my mission to try and help other people kind of overcome their own difficulties and the own hardships of life. Because I know I've gone through it myself, and one thing that I've always found so difficult is you'll listen to a lot of these, gurus, or you'll see all these videos or different things online where everyone says, oh, I have the answer, it's these 3 little steps, or 5 steps to success, or mental fortitude by doing this, or you'll gain strength by doing this. And I've personally never found them to be the most useful or the most helpful for me personally. What I have found is that some little things that I keep doing day in, day out have improved my life over this last year and a half, and the more that I do them, the further that I go into this journey, I found things that work and things that don't work. And one thing that I'm going to do on this is I'm going to be raw and honest with you. I'm going to tell you the truth about things that are working in my life, things that are not working in my life, and ways that I've improved, as well as ways that have, kind of set me back a little bit. I record a bunch of different podcasts. They're on Spotify if you want to listen to them. If not, I'll obviously talk about them throughout these videos that I'm going to be posting. But I'm also going to be moving forward with, a message or something to help people, at least once, maybe twice a week. Different things that I'm either doing that I find to help and also improve life. So the first thing that I really want to talk about today, or the main thing that I want to talk about today, is I think it really all starts not only with body, but also mindset. And one of the reasons that I'm talking about mindset is I think the way that you view the world, the way that you interact with the world, essentially creates the way that you kind of view yourself and the way that you interact with yourself as well. Obviously, everyone has self-talk, and I'm not necessarily going to go into that right now. What I am talking about is the way that you interact with the difficulties of life that occur for each and every single one of us every day, whether you're a man, a woman, a father, a mother, a child, a grandparent, just a single person, or anywhere in between. Life will have difficulties for you. It doesn't matter if you're rich, doesn't matter if you're poor, doesn't matter if you're any of those things. You're going to have difficulties, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's just simply being in traffic, or somebody cutting you off, somebody saying something unkind to you. These things are going to happen. And knowing that they're going to happen, or accepting the fact that they're going to happen, to me is the very first step of not only dealing with them, but finding a way to overcome them. What I have always found, at least in this last year and a half, is the way that you deal with things, the way that you deal with the difficulties or the unhappiness, is the way that you will affect your mood your behavior and your choices, maybe for that day, that week, that month, or beyond. It really depends. And one thing that you hear a lot of people say is, oh, you have to detach yourself from this, or you can't let that get to you. Very easy to say, very hard to do in practice. It's very easy for me to sit here in my basement and tell you or tell anybody that whenever something bad happens to me, I detach myself from it. That's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. Of course I don't just sit there and just detach myself from it. Not at all. I get angry, I get frustrated, I get hurt. I'm human, just like everyone else. But there are ways that you can combat those things, and you can find a way to really delve into a little bit more control. And the more that you do it, I have found, is the more that I'm able to not necessarily act in a way that I don't want to act, or a way that I regret acting later, because ultimately that's really what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid making a rash decision or a rash action that ends up leading us to doing something that we regret doing in the first place, and potentially maybe you can't even take back later on. And the way that I kind of anchor myself is I call it the snap. And what I do in order to kind of snap myself back into reality is I have a physical token on me. I carry a medallion with me at all times. It's in my pocket. I got it from the Daily Stoic store. I'm a big fan of them, as you've heard probably on my podcast many a time. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Holiday's books and things like that. But I have this medallion on me at all times, and it says the obstacle is the way, and on the other side it says the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. It's a quote from Marcus Aurelius. And to me, every time I start to get frustrated, and I didn't start with this initially, it wasn't that anytime I got frustrated I would just touch the coin and suddenly I'd snap myself back, and no, I was lucky if I did it 1 out of 25 times. But what I did find is that 1 out of 25 times I was able to say no, take a deep breath, and then I said, okay, how would I do this the right way? How would I do this so that I'm not yelling, or I'm not angry, or I'm not feeling like I was betrayed, or whatever the situation may be? And what I found was, like anything, the more you practice it, the better you're going to get. So then it started being maybe once every 20 times, once every 15, so on and so forth. And now it's, once every 3, once every 4. I've been doing this for a while now. And I still get frustrated, I still get annoyed. But more oftentimes than not, I find myself thinking, okay, let me take a breath, let me detach myself from this situation, let me not act rashly, let me not just act out of anger or fear or some other emotion. Is this something that I need to really stand up for? Is this something that I need to fight back on? Or is this something where I should say, no, that's not the way I feel about something, or no, I don't agree, and leave it at that? And the more that you realize these things, the more that you kind of take charge of your emotional response to something and decide whether or not the emotion is warranted or if it should be discarded, that's really how you start to move forward. I think not only as a person, but I think you start to move forward as somebody who is evolving, so to speak, or who is forging themselves into a better person, because you're not just allowing that immediate reaction to control you. You're deciding to let something, a higher purpose in you, decide how you're going to act, whether that is anger. And sometimes a situation, anger might be warranted, but generally speaking, it's not. And that's why I have the snapback. I call the snap because I always think about when I was younger, there was a teacher that I had that used to put a rubber band around their wrist, and they used to snap it sometimes when they wanted to remember something, or they wanted to make sure that they didn't act in a way that was contrary, I guess, to their own beliefs or their own philosophy. And I've kind of adopted that, and I found it to work for me. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a medallion. It could be a chess piece. It could be a ring. It could just be a piece of paper. It could be nothing at all. It could just be looking at your watch. And just that looking at your watch might snap you out of the behavior that you are about to act. It all depends. This is very individualistic. But if you have something, you have that little pivot point, so to speak, that kind of lets you cut off the action before you actually act, not only will you be happier with yourself, but you're going to trust yourself better, and you're going to believe in yourself more, which leads to further growth, and it really forges you into the better person. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time today just talking about that one tip, something that I used this morning. My two sons were driving me absolutely crazy at 5:20 in the morning this morning, who wanted cereal, who wanted milk, who wanted water, who wanted their tablet, who wanted to have a book read. It was nonstop. And instead of getting angry after the sixth request, I just touched my die and I said, nope, let me not do this. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to get angry. I'm merely going to act the way that I know I should. And it actually ended up being great. We ended up reading a story this morning. It was wonderful. And that's what the power of the snap at least does for me, and I think it can do it for you. And the more you use it, the more the muscle builds, the better you're going to be. And that's really what forging the tip of the spear is all about. It's becoming the best version of you so that you can do better for yourself, your family, and your society at large. That's my goal, and I hope you join me on this journey. Have a good one.